Everyone, I'm Bridget Peoples, a psychic medium and Northwest medium, your connection to the spirit world. And today I have a wonderful guest, Lawson Patterson. He is a psychic medium as well. And I just look forward to sharing his gifts and abilities with all of you. And we're going to ask some different questions. And if you guys have questions, please send us private messages as well. So Lawson, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing
It's a
good. How
pleasure
are
to be
you?
here.
Yes, I'm so glad that we could finally
Well,
connect and come together and get this started because it's so much fun and people just love watching different videos of those of us that what we do they don't understand. So I was just would like to
yeah.
ask, as a medium, and where did you start with your gifts? How did they evolve for you?
Well, the whole thing kind of burst upon Brian and I, my partner and I. We know the specific day. It was January 7th of 2013 that Brian had what we refer to now as a radical awakening event that took
Wow.
place. Now, I will say that in retrospect, Bridget, when you look back,
Hmm.
you realize, okay, stuff was going on a long time before then. It's
Absolutely.
just that event really stepped it into our foreground and brought it to our attention. And it was just a
Yeah.
few months after his experience that I was able to connect with my guide. And then it just kind of evolved from there. I actually started out, my guide training me as a healer, and
Oh.
moving energy.
Uh-huh.
And that's how it started. And I did that for about a year and a half. And then began working as a medium. It just seemed to be the natural progression at the time. And so now I work as a medium, a channel, a healer, and a teacher.
That's wonderful. Yes, when I met you, it's funny because as a medium, I don't, I have to have someone validate for me, in order for me to know and
Yeah.
trust them with my own, information and messages. And I always tell people validation is so important because if they can't validate it, now some things you're going to remember after, but if they can't validate part of what you're saying, I'm like, yeah, no, thank you so much. You want to be considerate because they are learning, they are developing, but I have to have someone who is more experienced or at least equal to my experience level in order to read for me. And so the first time I had you read for me, I have to say I was just totally blown away because you get names. I don't get names a lot. And my son was kind of on the couch listening, and it was just funny who you brought through. And you were able to pick up stuff on my son. And he was just kind of looked over like this, like, wait a minute. So he listened, of course, and shared with my husband because my husband, even though I do what I do, he still, after 32 years of marriage, has a hard time understanding, what I do. So you're so
I get
lucky.
that.
Yeah, you're so lucky to have a partner. So it was really refreshing for my son to overhear you bringing in his grandma, my husband's mom. It was just incredible. So it was
Oh,
really
that's
good.
awesome.
So I love that. So I
Yeah,
thank
I've
you for
always,
that.
no problem. It was a pleasure to meet you. It's a pleasure to connect with you every opportunity I get.
Yes, me
Excuse
as
me, I
well.
can definitely say that.
I
I
feel
do
the
make,
same way.
but
So we were talking
I
a little bit
was going to
about,
say, I do
so yes, how your gifts
mhm.
have developed. So you were doing energy work. So I'm assuming Reiki.
No, actually,
No. Oh.
I when I spoke to, so when it all started for us,
Mhm.
Brian began contact communication with his guide, who he refers to as Wes, and I work with a guide that I refer to as Harry.
Uh-huh.
They actually right away they asked us not to look at other teachers' teachings.
Oh.
They wanted to teach us just us. They
Uh-huh.
asked us not to read books on the subjects, not to any of that. And
Yeah.
basically, the logic behind it, what we were told was, is that human beings are so incredibly limiting in what they
Yes.
do. And I have lots of friends that are Reiki practitioners, Reiki
Mhm.
masters, all the love for Reiki, but
Yes.
they just told me at the time that it's a very limiting, like all human beliefs, a very limiting process, that there is so much more to healing than that. And so my guide specifically told me, he was telling me that you move energy. That's what you do.
Uh-huh.
And I remember asking him, I'm like, so what is the benefit of being able to move and focus energy, which is what
Yeah.
he was telling me that I do. And he just kind of looked at me funny. And Harry says, well, everything in your entire experience is made of energy. What do you think the benefit of being able to move and focus energy would be? Think about your question. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. So it was an interesting time. It was an interesting time learning from him. Lots of talking to animals and lots of, I would mess with Bryan in his sleep. I would sit on the other side of the room and use energy to do this to his nose. And all of a sudden he'd start rubbing his nose and Harry would tell me, see how that works? And I would just laugh.
Oh
So
my gosh,
and
that's
the
funny.
same thing with the animals. So that's how it started for me. And then
Oh,
honestly, Bridget, I think I was a little, Bryan's gifts are so tremendous. Um, and I was feeling, I think, a little left out at the time, if I was really honest.
oh, uh-huh. Yes.
I've got kind of a big in your face personality by nature. And and
I
Bryan
love
is
that
a
about
little more
you.
subdued personality. Thank you.
Yes.
Bryan is it's a blessing or a curse. You either love it or you hate it.
Yes,
There's not a lot of middle lines. But
for sure.
everybody was wanting to talk to Bryan. Everybody was wanting to, so cool, so cool. And I think
Aw.
I was feeling a little left out.
Uh-huh.
And I was going through a lot of lessons at the time. How the
Yes.
guides will do that. They would amplify that feeling
Yeah.
so that I would be faced with it and I would have to work through what's going on. Why are you feeling like this weird left out jealousy or something?
Yeah.
And so I told Harry that I wanted to start doing mediumship. And it was really funny
Oh.
because he would tell me, well, why do you want to do that? And
Mm-hmm.
I would say, well, I'd think about it and I'd say, as a healer, it's just such an incredible tool. There are certain things that in order to talk to someone's loved one to heal something emotional for them, and Harry would listen and say, yes, yes, yes. And he would ask me that every month or so. And about
Interesting.
6 months in, when he asked me, he cut me off and said, are you going to give me that crap again? And
Oh no.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
And in that moment, I realized that it was this weird, insecure jealousy thing, that it was my
Oh.
ego.
Uh-huh.
My ego was, look at me too. And so
Right.
it really was an emotional time for me. And I
Yeah.
told Harry, I absolutely started crying in that moment. And I told him,
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be that person. And I
Yeah.
don't ever want to be that type of a medium. I want it to
Yes.
come from a true, pure place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went a year, about a year and a half, um, just continuing my teachings and stuff. And one day, Spirit just started coming in like gangbusters.
Mm-hmm.
And about 4 months after that, Harry mentioned to me, do you notice the difference? And what I realized, Bridget, was that I hadn't told anyone that I was
Well,
speaking to Spirit regularly and clearly every day. And there was
uh,
nothing within me that felt the need to have to tell people about that. There was
yeah.
no ego that needed to share that. And it felt really good. And at that moment is when everything opened up for me and the clarity got so great. You mentioned names, and that's something I just really try hard to do because I
Oh,
know how much it validates for people and I know
yes.
how much they want it. Plus, it's fun to see their faces. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But,
I do love seeing their faces when you can bring in. I
it's
don't, it's funny,
great.
I don't always get names myself. I did get one the other night, which was, oh, and it kind of surprised me because not always names, and some names they're like, no, or it sounds like, but they
Right.
give me other validating information, and everyone's gift is so
Right.
unique to them. But I love how your guide, how Harry made you go through training with him. I kind of was on that same path. I think there wasn't really anyone that wanted to be a mentor or a guide for me, to kind of help me with that process. So, do you help people now with their development, spiritual development?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the primary things I do. With that and working as a medium. Those are the two things that I do is help to teach and help people develop. And I have learned really, and I think you would probably agree with this, that for most of us that are interested in this type of work, I mean, there's a reason why you're interested in it.
Yes.
Okay. It's a calling. There's a reason why that's
Yes.
there. And excuse me. And I just think I totally lost my train of thought there, Bridget. I totally just forgot what I was gonna say.
I love when they do that. It's
It
like,
was like I was reading it off a piece of paper, and all of a sudden it just went dot dot dot, and it went blank.
well, I think it's great that you teach teaching classes, because there is so many people that are interested, and not everyone has a gift. I believe that. But to the degree,
Yes,
to the degree and the amount of work they want to put into it is how it develops. Right. And I would think you
absolutely.
would know that. I recently have been given, I was trying to look at some other books. I even took a class on did a hypno session with somebody world renowned. And as I'm there, I'm like going, I do this all the time,
Mhm.
without having to tell people that I've been doing it. I've kept my NLP portion of what I do a secret for a very long time, you know, and
Right.
just like you with your gift. And so some days I think it is where people, especially right now with everything going on in the universe and all the energy, I'm sure you guys are feeling it. And luckily you have that big river right in front of your house. Just to push that
Yes.
energy into that river and let it go on down to the ocean, But I
I
think
love
that
that.
it's important that, well, no, you're not there by accident, as you guys probably know. And I think that that's a
Yes.
big portion of it, and that spiritual development is being able to just go out and ground yourselves and just feel one
Yes,
with
absolutely.
nature. And I love that. Now,
I've
would
discovered
you say, uh
I was going to say with the people that I'm working with in their development, I remember what I was going to say.
oh,
Um,
good.
I think I'm finding that most of them, it's not so much about learning how to use your gifts, it's about recognizing what's already taking place.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
already
Perfect.
happening. You're already getting the messages. You're already, there's all of this stuff is already going on. You're just not recognizing it for what it is more
Yeah.
often than not the case with the people that I work with. So usually just pointing a few key things out to them. And, I feel very blessed because I am working so closely with my guide that when I work with them in that way, every word is customized for them so that they will have that aha moment.
Uh-huh.
It amazes me how many of my clients speak with guides regularly, but they
Isn't
just
that
think they're
wonderful?
talking to themselves. Yeah, they just think they're talking to themselves. And and I get that, and I
Mhm.
get that, especially when you're working with a guide that has always been with you because
Yeah.
that guide has always stood next to you. Their
Mhm.
vibration feels very much like a part of your own. And
Yeah.
you know that.
Yeah.
As opposed to a different entity entering the room. I'm not used to their vibration, so I pick up on it instantly, and I know, okay, somebody's here that I'm not familiar with. It
Yeah.
took me a little longer to understand that close. It takes most people, I think, a little longer to realize that definition between that which is themselves and that which is their guide when they're having those types of conversations in
Yes.
their minds.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how you said that. Just pointing out those subtleties, because you're right. It's not developing or learning, it's noticing. That is huge.
Yes.
Huge. Noticing.
Yes.
And yeah, I just started listening to books because audio in the car, I love it gives me something to do. My drive, I have a commute. And I just
Sure.
started, and spirit just keeps telling me, they're like, you're past this. You're past this. You're past this. And I'm like, I know, but it's kind of
Yes.
interesting, but I'm just like, yeah, I really am past that, and some of them are fun to listen to, and some of their voices are annoying on the audiobook, I mean. But yeah, we're past that, and we're now at that next step for a higher calling, which I'm so glad that you guys are here too for the development, that I'm here for your guys' development. Because as we were talking a little bit earlier about
Absolutely.
channeling and what that looks like, because you had a group session recently, you and Bryan. It was awesome. But I know when you guys dropped some information, it just came out. It's because it comes through you, not from you. And I recognize that because
Yes.
I wasn't listening to their signs. I mean, I was and I wasn't. I listened, and then a couple months back, and then I let it kind of go to the wayside a little bit. And then
Right.
when you guys
Right.
gave your message, I'm like, oh yeah, I better get that done. just in case, So, but it was like one of those things that you get it and then Bryan gets it. And Bryan's like, I don't cut any bull. I'm like, I appreciate that, but it was still like jarring. But my guides did it for a reason. I understand that. I do. And
Oh yeah.
sometimes when people get messages, and you'll agree, I think, with this, they look for every little when, where, what, hi, wow, what, you know what I mean? And you
Yes.
just can't answer it. They have
Yes.
to learn to go with it, relax, let it absorb, and just move on until whatever
I
it is
also think that
comes.
oftentimes people that are new to this type of thing, they are
Mhm.
trying to analyze a meaning behind every single little thing. What
Yes.
did this mean? And what did that mean? And what did this mean? And oftentimes it's just a little nod from the universe.
Yeah.
It didn't mean anything. It was just so you could have that cool validating moment of,
Yeah.
wow, that's all it
Yeah.
really meant.
Oh,
It wasn't like you were supposed to write it down and contemplate
no.
it and Google it. And, it was
Right.
just a little nod just a little nod from the universe,
They want to
and I think
dissect
that's
the hell out of it with the dictionary of life, the
yeah.
universal dictionary. If we only had a
Which,
tap into that.
I have guides oftentimes tell me, don't say that to a client when I'm seeing something. Typically, it's something that's coming in their future,
Yeah.
and they'll cut me off, which irritates me. I always tell them, I'm a talker. If you don't want me to tell them, then don't tell me.
Right. Don't show me.
They want to give me background and stuff, so they give me
Yes.
this background because they don't say that. And and I get it now.
Yeah.
Recently, or not, well, not recently, but a little while back, I had a young lady I was speaking to, and they told me not to tell her that she would be working in the medical field.
Uh-huh.
And I did it anyway. I told her anyway. And Harry told me the minute you got off, she started Googling nursing classes and medical
Uh,
programs. And he
yeah.
goes, that's not how it's supposed to go down. It's all planned
Yeah.
out. She meets a roommate, the roommate introduces her to someone. It's a planned process. And
Yeah.
now what you've done is you've thrown a hitch in it. The universe will straighten it out like it always does. But it was an
Yes.
unnecessary hitch if you just
Yes.
would have kept your mouth shut when you were told to. So I'm
Oh,
like,
yes.
okay, I get it.
My guides, kind of like you, it's like
Oh,
they will, I don't need to know. And I'm at that point where I really don't need to know, but I can tell you this, it's like, I don't need to know the question. I can feel what you're experiencing, and you don't even have to ask, but I'm going to tell you what your loved one says, and they'll just sit there with their mouth dropped open. And I'm like, yeah, because and I flat out said, because it's embarrassing if I know. And it's not my place to know. I just have to trust my guides. The message is coming through me, not from me. And so, but yeah, because I would be like, as well. I've learned over the years not to do
yeah.
that though, but they're now at this
Yes,
point
me
where I
too.
just go, nope. I had a person that
Yeah.
was on my I was pulling cards one night and I said, I don't want to know your question. Usually I used to ask, and now I'm like, I don't want to know your question. I want you to give spirit a question, put it out there, telepathically, think about it, and I'll pull a card and I'll kind of go where I'm guided. And the card said reconsider. She didn't take the advice. And now she's really regretting that. And she's like, why
Isn't
am
that
I going?
funny?
Yes, it's why am I going through this? I go, well, because you have to learn to have faith. Gotta have faith.
There you go.
And
Gotta have
that's what it
faith.
is. Your gut told you no, the card said reconsider, and you still did it. It's a
Yeah,
really
it
lesson.
shocks me. It shocks me how often that happens. I mean, I'm not an inexpensive medium. So people
No,
pay a
no,
decent amount of money to speak
absolutely.
to me. Then
Yes.
they are blown away. They tell me, oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. They're just crying. They're amazed, blah, blah, blah. And then they go out and don't take the advice that was given. That's the part that gets me, or at least it used to. But now I
Yes.
understand, like you're saying, it's all part of a
Yes.
learning process. And,
It's a
it's the
learning
same way when
process.
we were kids.
Oh,
When
yeah.
we were kids, our parents give us advice and tell us not what to do and what to do. And we went out and did what we were going to do anyway, because that's how people learn.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's
I don't
it's the
mind
same
if they
type of
don't
thing.
do it, but it's funny the ones that, why, what do you see? And it's like, or the people that called me up
Yeah.
and go, their friends, guess what happened? I don't know. I'm not a guesser. Just tell me,
Yeah.
let's save me some time. If you want to pay me to
Yeah.
dial in or dive into my energy, I don't even, and then they've never even paid. They pay other people, which is funny, but they always want to call and, what do you think? It's like, I'm not stupid. My guides know that you're trying to get a free reading here, ask your other friends because
Yep.
people are intuitive, but I have to laugh, but always do you get that where they say, guess what happened?
Oh, I get it all the time.
It's
And
funny.
honestly, there are, Brian and I are kind of hermits, as we've told you before.
Yes.
So I think I did a post today on Facebook saying that, my relationship with society has become a bit of a dichotomy,
I
that
saw
I
that.
really truly do. Yeah, I very much love everyone, but I
Oh
am so over people at the same time. I am just so over people.
yeah.
So
Yes.
so it's kind
Absolutely.
of, I'm both ways, and I think a lot of people get that. It's not that I don't love people.
No,
It's not,
no.
actually, I often say it's much easier to love people than to like people.
Yes.
So
That's
there's
so
just so much
true.
going on. And
It's
and when
true.
you're like us, being around crowds and being around people, there's always stuff going on.
Yes.
It's so much more peaceful at home. Um,
Yes. Kind
it's
of.
just quiet.
Yes.
Yeah. Except for my
I do
crazy
myself.
dogs, we do pretty good.
Right? Then it's a little hectic. Yes, absolutely. Well, it's funny because as you were saying about people, I have noticed in the last year, like if I go to Winco or go to different places and it's a Sunday after church, I'm literally in there and all of a sudden I'm like, I've got to leave. And people would be like, my
Oh yeah.
sister, what's going on? I'm like, oh my God, I've got to go. There's this huge panic sometimes that'll come over me. It's not me, it's their energy. Or my guys are saying, get the hell out of there, something's going to go down. And so I'm really good at listening to them when it comes to that. But I think right now with the dichotomy of everything going on, and the should we vax, should we not, should we this, should we that, everybody's
Right,
so
right.
stressed out about it. It's literally hitting to where I just want to go put it in the pool. Here, take this in the water, take the energy, take it, do something with it. Again, you guys can push it. Maybe I'll push it out to your guys' river up the San Am or something, that energy, and let it go down. Cause I think water is such a great way of cleansing, with what's
It
going
is.
on.
It is.
But they just keep putting more and more and more. And I'm curious as well. And I know a lot of people probably ask this, what do you really see coming? Not to have you do a reading or anything, but like just as what are you
Right.
noticing with your guides?
I you know, I learn the most about what's coming up, I think, Bridget, when I'm doing sessions with other people,
Uh-huh.
because, for example, probably 8 months or so prior to the COVID thing hitting, um,
Mm-hmm.
I would look at people's lives, and at a certain point, right around February, March, it
Mm-hmm.
would get all fuzzy and it would be really hard to
Interesting.
see. And then
Okay.
the next person would come, and it was the same time frame that I noticed that. After about a dozen people, and it's always fuzzy in the same spot, I start
Yeah.
realizing, okay, some type of a world event there has to be.
Yes. Yes.
So using what I've learned through that process,
Mm-hmm.
I'm experiencing the same thing now with people.
Yeah.
There is another event coming.
Yes.
It feels exactly the same as when it would fuzz out for the COVID thing. Maybe even a little stronger, actually. Not exactly the same. I think it's even stronger. Um,
Mhm.
it is what people will consider to be very negative. I
Yeah.
think that the only way people are going to get through all of this is they're going to have to learn to adapt to change.
Yes.
Everything has changed,
Everything
and
was
that
changing.
adaptability, that
Yeah.
adaptability, I think the two key things, I know Harry would say the two key things are being able to adapt to change and being
Hmm.
able to deal with loss,
Yes.
because they do talk about a lot of loss that the world is going to experience,
Oh,
and
yes.
that
Yes.
how you deal with that is going to be crucial as
Yeah.
to how you deal with everything. And so
Absolutely.
I definitely
Yeah.
think it's going to get a little uglier before it gets better.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like how your perspective is on it because mine is a little obviously different because different things, right? But about November last year or 2019, I felt this huge event coming. Couldn't really describe what it was. I just knew it was big. And my friend Erin says, well, when is it going to happen? I'm like, around March, mid-March. Okay, well, what is it? And I go, I don't know, but it affects everybody on the planet equally. And he goes, am I okay? Are you okay? I said, oh, we're totally fine, but it will literally affect the whole planet, everybody living on the planet. And he goes, is it a meteor? And I go, it doesn't feel like that, but I don't know what this is because I'd never heard the word pandemic or COVID,
Mhm.
So, but I just knew something was up. So I made sure to tell my daughter and a couple people because I feel earthquakes. So I feel when earthquakes are coming. I don't always take the time to where they're at, but the closer they are, the more I feel it. And so I was like, well, it's not an earthquake. So like, it's an earthquake. I'm like, no, there's just something massive and a lot of people are going to die. This I do know. It's going to be horrible. I just don't know what it is. But this time around, um, with all the mandates, which make no sense. I'm like, what is the real agenda? Is one of the things that Spirit keeps asking me. But I feel it now. And when you said that, this whole side of my body is constantly numbed. Like, how you get that tingly and everything. So between chiropractors, acupuncture, and everything, it goes down to this side of my body too, right? And I'm like, it just locks up. And I'm like, I wonder if that's energetically feeling it or if truly it's just that pinched nerve, because it's interesting. But I cannot dial in like you guys are having, you see it getting fuzzy again, but I'm not able to
Mhm.
see and dial in. And I don't think a lot of us mediums or psychics are able to right now because it's
I
almost
don't think
like
we're supposed to.
we're not.
I
No,
really don't.
no.
I think that those in non-physical that work with us all,
Yes.
because whether we recognize them as guides or
Yes.
non-physical counterparts,
Yeah.
I know some mediums don't. I know my friend Jody Levon,
Hmm.
incredible medium, and she it's all intuition for her, which
Yeah.
I find very interesting because when I speak with her, her
Yeah.
guide is standing right beside her talking to me. She doesn't see or experience her guide. She gets
Oh.
all the same information, but
Hmm.
she takes it in as her intuition. So,
Oh,
we
interesting.
all have different operating systems, but
Yes.
we all have non-physical counterparts working with
Yes.
us. And I really believe that they do not want us to know. The
Yeah.
universe does not want us to know in advance the specifics. And I think part of it is because of the way that we speak with the public, and part of it is for our own personal lives.
Yes.
Um, I, I think
Yes.
that people like us are going to become very, very important moving forward in this world.
I do.
Unfortunately, and fortunately, as the world is falling apart, I know both Brian and I, business is booming.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely. No, it is. And
and
again, yeah, like you said, I don't think we're supposed to know either. I completely agree with that. It's interesting just how the dynamics of it are, and you're right, a lot of people are going to die, but I truly believe with my whole sense of feeling that they signed up for that. That was part of their life plan. Everyone that's passed of COVID, anyone who's died of the vaccines, all of them, Spirit has said was in their divine plan, right? And some
well,
people go, yeah,
yeah,
and some people say no.
yeah. I I am someone who believes that a person cannot die until it is their
Well,
moment. I mean, I
until
just
what?
believe that. I believe until it is their time. I believe that that is predestined. I really
Yes,
do.
yes,
And I think that we see that when we see like, somebody wrecked their car, it rolled 3 times, it burst into flames, and all that
yes,
happened was they broke their arm. They were
right.
okay. It was a
Yeah,
miracle.
yeah.
Okay, that wasn't their day. That was a
No,
true accident, and it
yes, it
wasn't their
was.
day.
Yeah,
Other people, something very minor will happen and they pass from it. It's because it was
exactly.
their day,
It was their day.
and I
That's
think that,
exactly how I say that too. And even with, that's why I said, even with COVID, it was their day. It was how they were
yes,
meant to go.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's just my
And, I,
belief.
and,
And
and
so,
they're
yeah,
very powerful. And now, just between me and you, I certainly don't want to take this conversation down the
no, 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 no,
conspiracy highway.
no,
But I definitely don't believe all the numbers. I think that
no.
there's a lot of manipulation going on with that.
Yes,
But I definitely think that the people that are passing during this time, it's just like all the other deaths. It was their time.
yes. It was their
I
time.
understand sorrow. I lost a brother at 32 and a brother at 36.
Oh,
I do
wow.
believe still it
Mhm.
was their day. Otherwise, they couldn't have passed. What people
Yes.
mean, I think, when they just mean that they died too young when they say
Right.
that, it's just that's the feeling I think we all feel. Whether it
Mhm.
was their day or not, it just feels like they're so young that feels
Absolutely.
off. But
Yeah.
those are extremely powerful passings. And the
Oh,
family
yeah.
members and the friends of those people, the
Yeah.
lessons that come from those experiences. I'm living in
Absolutely.
my family home, and 20 feet away from me is where my brother died and my father died, both in
Oh,
hospital
my
beds.
goodness.
Um, the house is filled. My mother, everyone's passed away from here, and I'm back
Yeah.
in my family home now, which I just love.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It is. That is really cool. Exactly. And I'm sure you probably see your brothers and your parents all the time then,
When I first moved out here, constantly,
right?
constantly, and when we first started into when Spirit opened up, they're such pranksters. They
Oh, yeah.
would, Brian is such a visual person. He sees everything. So my brother Steve would sit up in the corner like a gargoyle and stare at him. My brother Paul would stick his head through the shower curtain and boo, and I'd
Oh,
hear Brian
God.
scream from the bathroom. And whenever I go outside to take the garbage out at night, they know as a kid it gets really dark out here, that it would
Yes.
creep me out. So my brother Paul will always like jump out and scare me, and I
Yeah.
interact with them a lot. I really
Oh,
think it's part of the reason why my grieving process is pretty mild these days, because I still get to experience the person a great deal, just in
yes.
a little different way. So
I agree. I feel the same way when it comes to some of the losses we've had, because I can communicate with my dad and my grandma and my mother-in-law and them. And so for me, and I know this is going to sound probably horrible for people to hear this, but for me, I'm not experiencing that loss. And my guides have been really protective that way. I know it's coming. I know it's coming, but they've really protected me, about having that devastation. But I've always talked to spirits since I was little, just didn't know. Kind of like you guys, I had no clue.
right.
That's what I was doing. I just thought, I have a thing in my office that says, of course I talk to myself. I need expert advice. And that's just something that I have it. My sister saw that and goes,
Right.
"Oh, brother." And I go,
What can I say?
exactly. We're all good at this. But yeah, I think that a lot of times processing too, you'll find yourself talking to yourself, and it really is that higher connection with your own self. The one that's got one
Yes,
foot in the other realm and one here. I
yes,
think it's a really cool thing.
yes.
But no, I'm just excited. I can't wait. I understand you guys are going to plan some revivals this summer. Would you like to share about that a little bit?
Well, we're going to do some
Hopefully.
different retreats. I think
Uh-huh.
we're just going to do probably weekend retreats. We might do one that's a 4-dayer, but we are going to do them on a couple different themes during this next summer. We're going to have our
Nice.
glamping tents set up so people can come and get away from their real life for a couple days. And we are just going to do a spiritual immersion and
Uh,
and each group that we have out will be working with our guides to specify and
mhm.
to make very specific to them
Yeah.
what we want to teach and what we will be doing, so that it's very specific to the individual. We want to keep the groups really small, maybe no more than
Mhm.
6 people,
Yep.
so that we can just really get deep into both, well, depending on what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
some of them will probably be that more training type
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
Others will just be centering. People right now, Bridget, I don't have to tell you this. two or three,
I
two
love
or
you.
3 days to get away someplace where there is awesome energy and our property
Yes.
just has beautiful harmonizing energy.
Uh-huh.
Share some meals with nice people
Yeah.
and receive floods of information from spirit.
Yeah.
Bryan is probably going, well, I'm pretty positive. He has worked as a full trance channel, as we were speaking
Uh,
about before.
yes, I'm
And
excited for
that
that.
yeah, I think people that are familiar with like Bashar or Abraham Hicks,
Mhm.
it's the same type of channeling where Brian's consciousness removes completely. And what's
Ah,
interesting is Brian is usually working with other guides and he's like in a class and stuff. He's not even
Yeah.
paying attention what
Right.
Wes is doing with his body. So Wes steps in, Bryan occupies himself elsewhere,
Right.
and we get to have conversations with his guide directly. We've got a few videos right now on YouTube from about 7 years ago when he was doing that. And he
Uh-huh.
stopped doing it for a period of time. And now he's wanting to go back to it, I think. And I think that I've never found anything in the spiritual world that I find more fascinating. You
Right.
literally feel the energy change in the air. His face changes, his voice changes. It's just such an intense experience, and the information that is available through speaking with Wes and any of the guides. I mean, it's limitless.
Yeah.
Back when we first 8 years ago, I really didn't know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
So now I'm a little bit more savvy and I'm looking forward to some more polished questions so that we can maybe probe into what's going on in our world a little bit deeper. I think that would be a great way
Yeah.
to do it.
I think that's
So I'm
so
excited.
cool. I'm excited too. I can't wait because I'm like, oh, I gotta watch. I have to go back and actually watch the YouTube channel to get some headsets on when I'm not doing other stuff and be able to just close my eyes and listen. Because if I get distracted, I'm distracted. So that's all it is. And you understand
Right.
this, I know, because you're a lot like I am with
Totally.
distractions. It's like squirrel, and we're there. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm
Bryan's always
excited.
teasing me. He
Me
always
too.
teases me. Did you see something shiny? It's like, as I'm off, something shiny.
Right, exactly. It's like, ooh, I was at dinner one night. This girl was taking our orders, and then she just stopped. Oh, your nails, because they're glittery. And she's like, ooh, it was so funny. And I just kind of went, I thought in my head, squirrel, because I am always accused of it. So I had to laugh when she said that. I thought, and I knew it was a sign. It was Spirit's way of kind of doing that little jab with me. But I noticed too, you had said with the channeling, I had an experience recently where I was live doing a live video on my page. And all of a sudden, my voice started changing. I instantly picked up their voice. And I've had that when I've done readings too, private readings, where my voice will change. I'll pick up a mannerism or two, and it just takes over. And I'm not even really aware of it. But I think, being able to step out and get them off me, a little bit, I think makes a difference. But I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
I can't wait to have him do that. The first time I seen it,
And
though, I
I'm
have to
hoping
tell you, freaked me out.
it's
It's
a little
probably
weird.
Yeah, it's probably 15
The
years
very first
ago.
time,
Yes,
the first
yes.
time they tried to step forward with Bryan, he was driving.
Oh, shit.
And yeah, and he's like, it feels like I'm being pushed out of my body to the left. And
Right.
he's like, just trying to get home. It was so weird. And then it was shortly after we got home that he did his very first channel. And it was
Oh,
interesting
exciting.
for sure.
Yeah.
So
Oh my gosh.
you're
I
right on
had
that route. You know that's something you could totally do. You do know that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You could you could body channel.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I
if
can. It's funny how they'll pop in, and yes, I can. I just haven't there's always people around, when when I want to have that space. So that's probably why I don't as much. I'm sure if I did this full time, I definitely it would they're just waiting for me to do that. And I know that. So
yeah,
I'm almost
yeah.
there, guys. They know I'm almost there, but I'm so close. I have though experienced a few times, and I gotta say, our guides, and so are yours, by the way, are fantastic drivers because
Oh
they check
yeah.
us out all the time. I one time
All the time.
I was having a conversation. I was doing telepathic and I'm driving and I'm like, oh, isn't it prettier? And noticing it because somebody else was with me and they were driving. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm literally multitasking with three things in my brain as
Yep.
I'm driving, 55 miles an hour on a two-way highway. And it hits me
Yep.
that, oh shit, I'm channeling. So it happens
Yep.
all the time. Thank God they're good drivers. I just know that they take good care of me when we're out there.
Yes,
But
driving is one of those times that spirit seems to take the opportunity. I think we're kind of focused. It's almost like a meditation when we're driving. And
yes.
so they seize that opportunity. But yeah, more than once I've had Wes, Ryan will be driving. I can tell something's going on. And we'll be like on South River Road where it's all twisty. And
Yes.
one time Wes, I'm getting freaked out and Bryan looks and Wes takes over and I guess in Wes's voice, he tells me, worry not, you're fine. And then he just turns back. And just here we go. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm fine. It's like,
They just,
no, I
it's
don't
like,
worry
shut
anymore.
up, I'm driving.
I trust them now. I've
Oh,
developed my
yeah.
trust with them, and so we're cool. With the spacey thing, I've noticed, the squirrel
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
That's something I see a lot in spiritualists, and I've definitely come to the
Interesting.
conclusion because at one time I was, um, they told me I was adult ADHD,
Oh, yeah, me too.
and so right, and I realized after I started this work that I constantly have spirit.
Yes.
I mean, I can be talking and a really strong spirit will say something that is totally off topic of what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And it'll make me lose my place because now I'm thinking of that. Or two of them will be doing it. And I'm like, it's hard to keep track of what you're saying when you have all of this exterior
Yes.
information coming in.
Yes.
So it's just,
It's true. It's true. It's funny because, yeah, I think people just, oh, it's your ADHD. It's like, yeah, but we're
yeah,
such multitaskers too at the same time. We can literally do 3, 4, 5 things at one time because spirit's got this going on, they've got that, and they're just all over. And we just kind of sit there and
yes,
it all gets done. But it's just the process, I think, and they're having to learn, being in the body, taking over a little bit and stepping in, and our dialect, our memory, and just all the different things they constantly are tapping into. So I think it's great.
yes.
But yeah,
Awesome.
I'm not worried about them driving because heck, they look for that opportunity and they're good drivers. They're not going to hurt us. I
Yeah,
know that.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
not going to wreck our cars. Damn it.
Driving
No.
and in the shower seems to be another popular time too.
Oh,
They
yes,
love to come when
absolutely.
I'm in the shower, and I'm sure, like you were saying, the water is very cleansing. And as
Yes.
you are cleansing your body, you're
Yep.
cleansing your energy, and it's
Yes.
just a perfect time for spirit
Yeah.
to come through. So I
Yeah.
always shower before each session, and I will do a preliminary with
Yeah.
whoever's coming forward as I'm showering. I'm like, so who's stepping forward? And
Yeah.
I just kind of see who's around. Kind of, I used to actually think in my mind that these are the things that I'll be talking about during the session. But then the
Yes.
session would start, and I'd never mention even one of them. It would all be
No.
something. I'm
I
like, it's
know.
like, whatever.
It's like,
I
what is
just
up with
trust that
that?
it will be. Yeah, I
Yes,
just trust they know what they're doing. Harry
they know
tells me
what
all the
they're
time. It's like, well, they're telling you background. They'll want to give me background on the person. Now, like you said, I'm not really into people's personal information.
yeah. No.
And I learned that through Brian.
Yeah.
He can get so deep into people that,
Yeah.
and people I find it interesting when people are uncomfortable around us.
Oh, yes.
Um, because I would never do that.
No,
We both go out of our way not to invade your privacy. I
absolutely.
don't want to know it. He doesn't want to know it. It's
No.
not a comfortable thing.
No.
People are like, oh, if I knew what people were thinking, it's like, no, you don't want
No.
to know what people are thinking. You
No.
want the filtered
Absolutely.
version that comes out their mouth. It's like, you
Yes,
don't want the
absolutely.
unfiltered version. It can hurt you. It can be very offensive if it's
Yeah.
family or friends.
Yeah.
Thoughts, people think a lot of things and have a lot of feelings that they don't share
Yes.
because of filters and they know.
Yes. They're
So
very
I don't like to
careful.
see people's private.
I know. I
Very
tell my
much so.
boss that
I've
all the
always
time.
asked.
My boss had told me, she goes, I didn't hire you for 3 years because I didn't want you to read me. And I go, I don't read people without their consent. She goes, yes, you do. And I said, actually, I don't. I said, reading you is my psychic ability, which I don't like to do a lot of that. I prefer my mediumship. I go, let me tell you the difference. I said, the medium is one of your loved ones, grandma, aunt, uncle, one of them coming through to give you a message. That's one thing. But psychic work is reading you and your energy. I said, I don't want to know. It's none of my business. And I know she had recently done something and she wanted to hide it from me. And I said, but when people hide stuff from me, my guides then step in and like, hey, they're hiding something. And that's all they'll tell me.
And
They won't tell me what it is. So I walked out of her door and
it's
I
such
go,
a specific energy.
yeah. And I said to
I'm
her,
sorry, go ahead.
I go, so anything going on? Nope. How you feeling? Oh, I'm good. I'm like, uh-huh. Okay. She goes, why? And I go, no reason. Then I walk out the door and I pop my head back and look at her and I go, I know you're hiding something, by the way. And I walk off. And she goes, I knew it from her office. It's like, no, but I love her to pieces. So it's just, we figured that we've known each other in past life. My daughter is named her exact name, which is really fascinating to both
Oh,
of us.
really?
And I realized, years later, I thought I named her after one person, but it was actually this individual that I wasn't going to meet until later in life, but named my daughter after her. Wild.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was like, what? So yeah,
Amazing universe. Amazing universe.
it is. And with that, I should probably, we should, wrap this up. But I'm so grateful. And please share
Yeah.
with people how they can get a hold of you.
Well, best way to reach me is through my website, which is meditateconnect.com. You can also just Google my name. There's only one Lawson Patterson out there. So I'll come up right on the top.
Well, I
Just
found
go to my
two of
website.
you.
Did you?
That's
Well,
how
actually, I
got
take
that
that
other
back.
account.
I take that back. There's a couple others out there, but I don't think they have websites and stuff, so they end up
No.
down on the list.
Yeah. Exactly. As I
I'm
say,
easy to find.
I found a few. I found your, is it your Instagram or Twitter or something I found? I sent you a message on
Oh,
the wrong
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yes.
hadn't had
I
the
just
time.
don't go on Instagram much. I'm not on Instagram much because I have such a big following on Twitter that when I went over to Instagram and I only had like a few hundred people, I was lonely. I went back to Twitter where I had 60,000 followers and a base to interact with.
Right. Oh my God, that's so funny. That's funny.
I have a hard time building a new account on Instagram, but I'm going to try. Maybe this next summer when we're doing events and stuff, I'll use
Yeah.
Instagram more to share that with people.
Well, I feel that your guide definitely had you look that day because that's where I sent the message to do the interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I hadn't been on there in probably a month, and I saw it shortly after you sent it. So
yeah.
that was definitely arranged.
Yes.
This was arranged.
Yes, I agree completely. But I'm gonna go ahead and we'll end our recording at least, and people to get a hold of you. I'm so excited. I look forward to having another conversation with you guys down the road. Maybe I could bring out some equipment and we can do an in-person outside before the weather turns. Would be fun just to be able to look at the energy there, because I think you live by a cemetery too. Yes.
Yes, it's just right up the hill. It's a little over 200 years old, so it's really interesting to check it out. I love it. It's one of my favorite places to go and to meditate. And I take my puppies up there to run around because there's nobody there, so they use it as their little dog park. Of course, I clean up after them. And the spirit loves it.
Yes, you probably bring a lot of people home.
There's a wonderful little old lady in spirit that used to visit with us when I would take the dogs up, and she was waiting for her husband to pass, she told me, and she just loved the dogs and she'd sit and play with the dogs, and she told me her husband would be coming to join her soon, and he must have passed away because probably about 7 months into talking with her, she just stopped showing up one day, and I thought, oh, her husband must have joined her, and they went off to do whatever it is they're doing.
Oh, I know. A lot of times they tell me they don't hang out in cemeteries. So,
well, no, you bring them with you. You bring them with you, just like, you bring them with you. When you're someone like you or me and you go to a cemetery, they start popping up, especially as you're walking around the gravestones and thinking about them. And wow, I wonder what their life was like. And then all of a sudden I hear, it was hard. Whoa, what was that? They'll start telling me. So it's interesting.
It was hard.
Yeah, we'd love to have you out.
That would be fun.
Love to have you out.